from my point of view, the actual Le Mans was less satisfying than the virtual Le Mans. The virtual Le Mans was a lot more entertaining. It was just a lot. It was better covered, and it had everything, more actions and more stuff, more going on. So, and it seemed just faster, but I guess because it's virtual, so drivers could tend to go faster and do everything faster and take risks because, you know, your life is not in danger. So, but it just seemed faster. I have not been watching any of the ELMS or WEC broadcast, but watching the Le Mans broadcast, I felt that it was a downgrade from the IMSA broadcast. Okay, so I'm going to explain that. So first of all, the leaderboard. If you saw the leaderboard at Le Mans, the leaderboard just had the cars' numbers and their positions. So it was the position on the left-hand side and the cars' numbers on the right-hand side, and that was it. There was no indication whatsoever of, I mean, how many fans actually know the car numbers. If you're playing to attract the casual fan, how many of them know the car numbers? Not many. Even me, I don't know many of the car numbers. In IMSA, every single broadcast, not just the Rolex 24 hours, the leaderboard actually flashes. So it flashes to show, actually it shows you the top 5 in each class. So it's a step up from just the top 3 that the leader lights in WC shows you. So the leaderboard is made up of the top 5, and also they show you the whole leaderboard. And it flashes to show you the driver actually in each car and the splits between the cars. The WC never had that. They only showed that when they highlighted a car, when they were talking about a car particularly. The leaderboard was just useless, pretty much. And also, not just that, during the broadcast, I never saw a single commentator. At Rolex, you do see the commentators. They do show the commentators in their booth, and they do show them talking and all that stuff. So, and giving examples of stuff and doing the analysis. But at Le Mans, they didn't do that. They never showed none of the commentators. The one commentator particularly, his voice was just probably one of the most boring voices. And his name, he used to run in the ALMS, and Damien Faulkner. His voice is just one of the most boring voices. I mean, I remember in the ALMS where he used to be a partner with Ben Keaton, and whenever they would win a race, he would be getting interviewed, and it was just the most boring interview. It was just like it was an ordeal just to listen to him. I mean, he was very knowledgeable, don't get me wrong, but it's just that to be a commentator, you know, if you're on TV, you're supposed to be somewhat entertaining, and that's the one thing he just wasn't doing. No, you know, not just that I want to bash the WC or the ACO, but it's just that IMSA's broadcast is just further. Actually, I don't know if you can see behind me, there's a paraglider. They say I'm actually at Belle Isle, and there's a paraglider right up there. I don't know if you can see him. I don't know if you can see him right there. So behind me, up there, right above my head, that's a paraglider. So he got a parachute and a fan motor. So yeah, so for some reason he seems to come here when I come here. So I'm in Belle Isle right now. Right now we can factually say that Toyota has the best car. It's not just that they have more power. No, they are the best car, because in this race, the Toyota had as much power as the other car. They just, I mean, the only way you could BOP a car is to give them the same amount of power. And then it's up to each manufacturer to develop their car to make sure they can make the best with that horsepower. I mean, with the horsepower given. So Toyota, first of all, had to be a lot more efficient than the other cars. All right, so they had to be a lot more efficient, and despite that, and the other car, I would say, had maybe even more power. So the other cars could use more power, more fuel than the Toyota, but the Toyota was making the same amount of horsepower as the other cars. So there's no way you could argue that Toyota, it was just the better car. Simple as that. But don't forget that Orica, so this is Toyota, pretty much the #1 manufacturer going against Orica. Pretty much that's what it is. So you're not, you know, it's just that they just have way more resources, and you're gonna use your resources to win. That's what they're here for. They sell cars. So they're just bigger. I mean, besides from the racing community, or you know, maybe the elite watch collectors, not many people know Rebellion. So that showed the disparity. But in every single country you go, people know about Toyota. So that shows you what you're working against. That shows you what Rebellion is up against. During the broadcast, Louise Beckett, the WEC's pit lane reporter, she mentioned that she's surprised that Anthony Davidson has never won Le Mans, considering all the cars he's driven there and how he's been in the top positions. So Anthony Davidson has driven there the Aston Lola, and he's driven the Peugeot, and he's driven the Toyota now. So, and he hasn't won Le Mans. But one big thing, and if you ask any Corvette fan, which I am, unapologetic Corvette fan, is I think I even sent out by Twitter. In 2010, so the Corvette was going through the S's. When the Corvette was going through the S's, and so was Anthony Davidson. He came up from behind the Corvette and tried to pass it, and he ran the Corvette off the road and took it out. And when they asked him about it, he said, well, the Corvette shouldn't be taking that much chances. But, you know, the rule is that if you're being passed, you keep your line. It's up to the passing driver to make the pass. Anthony Davidson ran the Corvette off the road, and he didn't care. He just didn't care. And yeah, so, you know, we pretty much hope that he wouldn't win Le Mans, and so far he hasn't won Le Mans. So I think that's a Corvette curse. So he has that's a 10-year Corvette curse. I thought he was going to win it this year, so the curse would be lifted, but he hasn't won it. So, but oh well. But as far as me, I think I'm vindicated because he's gone 10 years without winning it. So right now, I have nothing against him anymore. But it's up to him to win it. So it's a Corvette curse, Louise. So that's what it is. So I hope you can remember back to that time. In qualifying, Porsche was on pole, and they felt they gave it their all, and yeah, and they thought they would have a good race, and yeah, but in the race they were nowhere to be found. They were even competing with the privateer teams, the privateer GT4 team, so WeatherTech Racing and WEC Competizione. So those are privateer teams. Well, they're not really, they're privateer teams because they were not factory entered. So the difference between the privateer team at Le Mans is that, okay, so even though those teams are well funded and they had top drivers, it's not just about that. So factory teams, so let's say WEC Competizione had a factory driver. The team would get, because a factory driver, they get the latest updates from the factory. So before the race, so even though you might have the latest update up till that point, sometimes the factory makes updates just for Le Mans. And without being a factory entry team, you usually would not get those updates. So that's what happens. So I don't think WeatherTech Racing and WEC had the same updates as AF Corsa. So after qualifying on pole, how come the Porsche lacked pace? In my opinion, okay, it was just well, they were good at top speed. They had the 1 lap pace advantage, so they could go top speed, but they could not sustain that pace. So sometimes it happens that way. So I remember one time it happened to the Corvette. The Corvette was able to qualify pretty good, and they said the fastest lap in the race, but they just can't sustain that pace. So it happens. So sometimes a car might be good on 1 lap pace, but on consistent pace, they're just no good. And this is just what happened in this situation. Hopefully you didn't pay to watch the broadcast unless you already have a TV package that covers it. But I used the 14-day trial, so I'm glad I didn't pay for it because it was not worth it. The race, Le Mans, was broadcast in 1080i at 25 frames per second. It looked choppy. It just didn't have the quality you expect from such a prestigious event. But 1080i, that's less than probably the average video on YouTube. Normally now the current standard is 1080p and at 30 or 60 frames per second. So my videos I make are at 1080p at 30 frames per second. Some I make at 16 frames per second, but they were making this at 1080i. That was like the not used format now. I'm not sure if that's a standard format in Europe or not, but it just didn't look good. But the Formula One broadcast looked pretty good. I don't know what format they use, but if it's the same, the Formula One broadcasts look pretty good compared to the Le Mans broadcast. It's not just that I'm bashing because I don't like the WC or the ACO, and because I'm a IMSA fan, but it's just, those are things that need to be talked about. Oh, and not just that. So, the leader light system. All right, this was like something that came in the ALMS, I think in 2005, I believe. I can't quite remember. And then I remember at the time the European Le Mans series adopted it, and then Le Mans adopted it to use it, but they're still using it. But right now, IMSA has gone away from the leader light system from the car. So pretty much the leader light system is the three dots on the cars, and then if a car in the podium position, if you're in first place, one, the lights will flash. If you're second place, two lights will flash, and if you're third place, all three lights will light up. And then so when the car go by, the fans know what position the car is in. But obviously, when it became the United Sports Car Championship, IMSA went away from that system and used the number system. So whatever, so even that you could be in 20th place or 50th place, it will show 50 on the car. The WC is still using, and the ELMS, and I think the Asian Le Mans series, they're still using the leader light system. So when I saw it, it just kind of felt outdated to me. It was just like, wow, I can't remember this. But the only thing is that even the cars that run in IMSA, not the DPIs, but the other cars that run in IMSA, like the GT Pro cars and LMP2 cars, they still have the leader light system on the car because they have to be built to ACO regulations, and when they go to Le Mans, then they use it. So a lot of IMSA cars, they only, like the Corvettes, they only use that system when they go to Le Mans. That's the only time they use it. So, but the system still has to be there. So I think it's time for the WC and the ACO to upgrade. Maybe make a 5 light system. Maybe I'll upgrade to 5 lights. I'm not sure.